Good evening. It's Michelle Fox from Michelle Fox Beauty and Michelle Fox Online. I would love to welcome you to my channel. If you're new here, we love to talk about all things beauty. In particular, I usually talk about issues pertaining to women 40 and above, but today's topic is something that we all have dealt with at some point if we've ever worn eye makeup, and that is, why does my eye makeup look funky today? Why did it look fine the last time that I did this very same look, but today it doesn't look right? That is exactly what we're going to talk about because I've got 10 reasons why, and we're going to start at number 10 and we're going to go to number one. So hopefully that you could hear that. I have so many audio things happening at the same time. I couldn't hear it, but oh well, fingers crossed. So hello again, it's Michelle. So I know that I have had that frustration, even though I know the answer. It's just sometimes you get going and you just forget some of the basics. Okay, so I'm going to quickly explain 10 reasons why your makeup just doesn't, your eye makeup in particular, just doesn't look quite right, where something is off. I usually call it muddy. It just looks kind of blotchy, splotchy. It doesn't look flattering. It's not that gorgeous, smooth transition that you were expecting. I especially have this when I'm practicing something like for a special occasion, and I'll practice over and over. And it almost seems like the more I practice, the worse it looks. And I feel like, what is happening? Like, what phenomenon is occurring right now? So we're going to talk about that. Let me find my banners. And I'm starting from 10 and going down to number one because I really want to talk about number one. I looked at what other bloggers have said about this same issue, and nobody has said my number one reason. So this is going to be fun. But number 10, I'm going to start there. Not using a quality palette. You get what you pay for, people. Okay. And yes, sometimes there's an amazing, Wet and Wild or something like that. But for the most part, you need to buy quality to experience quality. And so when you have a quality product, it is going to have better color payoff. There's not going to be as much fallout. It blends better. It lasts longer. And all of those things factor into how it wears, which is part of the problem that's making it look muddy, splotchy, yucky. All right. So if you're expecting a Cadillac out of, I was going to say a Pinto. I don't think they even make those anymore. That was a car back in my day. Anyway, if you're expecting something fancy when you really only purchase something kind of simple and inexpensive, you have to adjust your expectations, all right? But if you want to experience the best, you want to purchase the best. All right, ask me what I think is the best. So, number 9, using the wrong colors. That can be either the wrong colors for you considering your eye color and your complexion, or it can just be the wrong color combination. Like you're just putting things together that just really are difficult to work with. You might see in a magazine somebody's using black and bright blue and canary yellow, and you think, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I want to do that. But that is very difficult to do. And so you have to evaluate, are these colors meant to go together? Do they flatter my eyes? Do they flatter my hair, my undertone? You don't always have to go by that. I think we used to be a little more stuck in that, where we felt like, I have, these are my colors and that's all I can ever use. I don't really adhere to that anymore, but there's no doubt that I've worn colors that I've concluded that just really didn't do anything for me. And so those I stay away from. All right, moving on. Number 8, not blending properly. So this can go both ways. Either you don't blend enough, or you can blend too much. When you are putting your eye color on, you really don't want to use a brushing motion for starters. You want to pat it on so that you have a nice deposit of color. And when you are blending, you're blending the edges. You want to have like the transition be very subtle. But if you are wiping, basically wiping all over, especially if you're wiping across different colors, you're just like putting that all in a pot and mixing it together, and you're going to end up with mud. And that is a lot of times what is going on. You think that you're doing a good thing by trying to blend, but you're really just mixing everything into one funky color. So you have to be aware, you have to be, what's the word? Like intentional. You have to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So if you need to smooth out the edge, then just stay on the edge. And if you've seen any of my tutorials, I always have different blending brushes depending on where I'm at on my eyes. I've got a certain area that I always use light colors and an area that I always have dark colors. So I've got my light blending brush and my dark blending brush. So just things like that that you may need to evaluate. Am I not making an effort to blend at all? Or am I blending kind of haphazardly and it's making it just look muddy? All right. Number 7, not using the correct technique. So I alluded to that when I said that rather than just brushing it on, you really want to be patting it on. And that is particularly important as your eye becomes more textured. Because if you can imagine painting a wall, if you're using a roller on a very smooth wall, you're going to get a nice smooth application. But if you're using a roller on a textured wall, we have textured walls all over our house, then just one pass usually isn't going to get the color everywhere that it needs to be, because that texture is preventing you from really making contact all the way down. And in the same way, when you're just kind of like sliding back and forth, you're not always getting it in all the nooks and crannies. And so it's better if you're patting it on to really make sure you're placing it and that you're not missing any little areas. It might not seem like much, but that does make a big difference. And you will be able to blend that out if you feel like you got too much on. Okay, here we go. Using too much product. You'll learn the balance. Okay, I love my light colors. I always put probably too much my underneath my brow and on my lid, but I know that I do that, and so before I move on, I buff that off a little bit. But when the big problem for me is if I use too much of the really dark color in the outer corner, then I got serious trouble, because that is really hard to compensate for. So you want to, again, have some forethought, practice, be in control of the amount that you're placing on. It's easier to add and to layer than it is to take off after you've already put down too much, especially when it's a dark color. This is fun, isn't it? Number 5 is not considering your eye shape and size. We all have very different eye shapes and sizes, and you may be watching a tutorial from someone and you think, I want to do my eyes exactly like her, and you're following along and you're doing it everything right, but her eyes are a completely different shape than yours. Something that I run into a lot is some people just have lots of space between their brow and the crease of their eye. I have very little space in there. So there's not a lot I can do in there. And but some people, like I said, just have tons of space and it looks so beautiful and dramatic. But I have to adjust my expectations and adjust my technique based on what I'm working with. So it does behoove you to understand your eye shape and to understand the whole concept of light and dark, how the darker colors push back, the lighter colors bring forward. And that will definitely aid you in making your eye colors, your eye shadow colors, look how you want them to look. Okay, moving on. Number 4, trying a look that's too complicated. That's probably me. So, like I referred to the black and blue and the canary yellow, sometimes we'll see something that is just so cool, or it's a trend. What was the trend? The pop of color or something. There was something where it had like the little circle of color in the middle of your lid, and everybody was doing it. And gosh darn, I just wanted to perfect that. But every time I tried it, it just didn't look good on me personally. And I just think it was just a little bit too much going on for my small eyes. Too many colors, too many different maneuvers. And if if you feel like you are getting a muddy look, no matter what you do, you're following all the other suggestions, and you're like, it's still just not coming out crisp. It's not coming out the way I want it. You might just be trying to do too much in too small of an area, or you're trying to do something that's way more complex than you're ready for. Keep in mind that the people that have YouTube channels, not me, but like makeup artists that have YouTube channels, they are professionals that have been doing it for years and years and years. So their level of expertise is different than where we are coming from. I'm among the masses. I'm among the normal people. All right, moving down to number three. So these are the top three. These are the big ones. So the third reason is not using different brushes. So if I'm using three eye colors, but I just have one really good eye makeup brush, I'm like, well, I invested in one brush. I use that for all three colors. And so I'm using it for my light, medium, dark. That works okay the first day. But then the next day, when I dip into that light color, I've still got all that residual medium and dark still on there, right? And so as time goes on, that is just going to get muddier and muddier. Not only that, but the different areas of your eyes are different sizes, and you need different techniques, different types of bristles. And so if you can take the time to figure out what look do you do most often, and what brushes do you need for each shade that is involved in that look, it will make your life so much easier. I have my highlight brush, my mid-tone brush, my outer crease brush, I have my blending brush, and then I've got a couple of extras like to clean up if I make, if I've got fallout. So understanding what the different brushes do, and having a variety of brushes, and making sure that you're not cross contaminating, so to speak, that you're not using one brush and you're dipping in all different colors. That is going to help a lot to keep your color, or your eyeshadow colors just being really crisp. Okay, the top two. So exciting. It is a crime not to prime people. You must use an eye primer. I'm telling you, if you don't believe me, just try it once. It makes all the difference in the world. When I have forgotten to put on my eye primer and I start putting on my eyeshadow, I'm just like, okay, stop everything. I don't even bother taking the time. It is so much more frustrating. It's hard to explain unless you've experienced it, but the primer, it gives that color something to cling to. So it has a richer color. It blends better. It's easier to lay down. It lasts longer. It doesn't smudge and crease. And it even makes your lids look smoother. So those of us that have a little bit of crepiness on our eyes, that eye primer is your friend. And this is different than concealer. So if you feel like, well, I don't use eye primer, but I do use concealer on my eyes before I do my makeup, try an eye primer that is a true eye primer and see if there's a difference. Because for me, concealer is concealer and eye primer is eye primer. Okay. Eye primer is a very different consistency, and it does different things. I will sometimes use both. I'll do my eye primer and then pat a little bit of concealer on top, but I don't use concealer in place of an eye primer really ever. And again, if you need a good suggestion, I love the one that I use. So ask me. I think I'll put some links in the description. All right. And here's number one. Who's excited? Dirty brushes. I am guilty of this, okay? I go way too long between cleaning my brushes. And the reason I get away with it is because, for the most part, I use the same three colors. I have like a light, kind of a vanilla that I use for my highlight, a medium brown, and then a really deep, rich brown. And I've got the three different brushes, and I'm just using that over and over and over. So it doesn't really, I don't really notice if my brushes are dirty because I'm putting the same color on over and over. When I'm grabbing those brushes and then I'm dipping into emerald green or midnight blue or something like that, or copper, and all of a sudden I feel like, wow, that doesn't look anything like it looked in the catalog. It's because I've got all of that other color gunked up in there for who knows how long. So it's really, really a fantastic idea to get on a schedule for cleaning your brushes. I'm not super good at that, but I do know that it's key. So here is something that I do for sure. If I have like an important event, I'm going to a wedding, I'm getting my picture taken, and I want this look to just be slamming, I want it spot on. I, the night before, wash my brushes, give them plenty of time to dry, and make sure that it's like starting totally fresh with brand new brushes. It makes a huge, huge, huge difference. Trust me on that. As far as how often should you do it, everybody says something different. There are sprays that you can use just as a quick cleanse in between colors if you only have a couple of brushes right now. But I like to use something I can dip into and swirl around, some kind of a liquid that I can use. And when I don't have that, I use Dawn dish soap. I put that in my hand, then I swirl the brush around and rinse that off and squeeze that out. When you're drying your bristles, let's see, I'll use a pencil. Let's pretend that the bristles are here. When you're drying your brush, it needs to be hanging off of a counter like this so that it's, horizontal, or it needs to be upside down, but you don't put it back in like a cup with the bristles up here, because that water is dripping down into the glue of the barrel, and that is not cool. That's going to ruin your brush. So, but when you do a thorough cleaning like that, I think you're supposed to do it every week, assuming that you put your eye makeup on every day. I probably do it every month, but it all works out. But I would say for sure once a month. And there is, if you have any kind of issue with your eyes, here, let's take that off so that we're not all have to look at that. If you have any kind of issue with your eyes, you've had an infection or you've got something funky going on. I don't know how long you've been following me, but I had a real funky thing going on. You want to then clean them every single day, because you can even contaminate yourself. So you can take something from one eye and spread it to the other eye with your brushes. So lots of reasons to make sure that you're keeping your brushes clean and looking good. And if you have never invested in brushes, you have not really experienced doing your makeup. The little spongy applicators that you get in the compacts, they're kind of a great something to start with, maybe like when you're young, but really to get the look that you're going for, you want to have some nice brushes. And yeah, they can be pricey, but there are some that are modestly priced. But that's definitely something that you want to invest in and take care of them, and they will last a super long time. So let me know which of those resonates with you, or if you had an aha moment, like, oh, that's me. That's what I'm doing. That's the problem. For me, it's the combination of using too much dark color, and not having my brushes totally clean. So that usually is my problem. So I'm still learning too. So I hope you learned something new. If you enjoyed this today, like this video, share it with a friend, and make sure you subscribe to Michelle Fox Beauty. I come on with all kinds of random things. We don't always talk about makeup. We have talked about hair loss. We've talked about age spots. We talked about so many different things. If there's something in particular that you would like me to address, put that in the comments, and I'm sure that you will see that popping up next time. Thanks so much for your time. Have a great evening.